And now,
we should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends. We should take a moment to recognize that one of the key factors behind our nation's great prosperity is the open trade policy that allows the American people to freely exchange goods and services with free people around the world. We have seen free trading nations prosper while protectionist countries fall behind. America's most recent experiment with protectionism was a disaster for the working men and women of this country. We were told that it would protect America from foreign competition and save jobs in this country. The same line we hear today. The actual result was the Great Depression, the worst economic catastrophe in our history. Our peaceful trading partners are not our enemies. They are our allies. We should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag. Yes, back in 1776, our founding fathers believed that free trade was worth fighting for, and we can celebrate their victory, because today, trade is at the core of the alliance that secure the peace and guarantee our freedom. It is the source of our prosperity and the path to an even brighter future for America. Until next week, thanks for listening.
Now, Trump unsurprisingly denied Comey's account, and then on Friday morning he tweeted something ominous even by his standards.
The breaking news this morning, the President of the United States just threatened the man he fired as FBI director.
In an extraordinary tweet today, Trump warned James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press.
Tweets like that are actually really difficult to pass because they are somehow both a borderline obstruction of justice and the meaningless rantings of a confused old idiot. They exist in two opposite states simultaneously. Trump is truly a Schrodinger's arsehole. And I will say this. If he is recording everything that happens in the Oval Office, I actually don't want to hear those tapes. Because I'm assuming it's just his voice muttering the sentence, "I never wanted any of this," over and over again, occasionally interrupted by mattress commercial jingles and string cheese farts. In fact, it's since come to light that Manafort may have been in debt to pro-Russian interests by as much as $17 million. And the more we learn about him, the shadier he gets.
Prosecutors have noted that Manafort has 3 U.S. passports with different numbers and recently traveled abroad while using a phone and email registered under an alias.
Okay, so, first of all, who outside of Jason Bourne needs 3 separate passports and an alias, besides, of course, the Olsen twin? Because she's got one for Mary-Kate, one for Ashley, and one for Hilary Duff. Oh, that's right. There is also no Hilary Duff. It's just one Olsen twin, moving back and forth very quickly, and then changing her hair and face significantly and standing still in a different place. I'm close. I'm so close to blowing this whole charade apart. Now, as for the president himself, he was notably silent the day of the hearing, but sent a tweet early the next morning that began, "Despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication." And just think about what he's saying there. Trump is essentially claiming that he's been vindicated by testimony he's claiming is false. At this point, he's become a walking logical paradox. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he just starts tweeting things like, "I just travelled back in time and killed myself. Very unfair." Now you would hope that now he's in office, Trump would have formulated a plan outlining exactly what he would like to see happen regarding the Dreamers. But apparently, as late as 1 hour before the decision was to be announced, administration officials privately expressed concern that Mr. Trump might not fully grasp the details of the steps he was about to take, which again is awful, but it is something we all probably presumed anyway. Like the fact that Tom Hanks' character in Castaway absolutely fucked Wilson. There is no doubt in my mind that that happened. Fortunately, though, Trump has shown little interest in soft power. His administration recently proposed a 29% cut to the State Department and foreign aid. And there are many high-level vacancies at the State Department, to say nothing of our lack of ambassadors.
From Belgium to Belize, South Korea to South Africa, President Trump has a problem. His embassies have no ambassador. Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, all without ambassadors.
Holy shit! South Korea, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Those are countries where you really need an ambassador. It's not like Liechtenstein, where you can basically scrape by with a sign that says, never stop Liechtensteining. The good news is that Trump's tax bill actually forces companies to pay taxes on all the money they've stashed overseas. The hope is that they'll then bring it home in something called repatriation. The bad news is the tax they're being forced to pay, which may have once been 35%, remember, has been slashed to as little as 8 to 15%, which seems less like a punishment and a lot more like actively rewarding companies for tax avoidance. But Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, an objectively good-looking man.
So, yes or no, if a florist in Indiana refuses to serve a gay couple at their wedding, is that legal now in Indiana?
George, this is where this debate has gone with misinformation and frankly,
it's just a question, sir. Yes or no?
Well, there's been shameless rhetoric about my state and about this law and about its intention all over the internet.
Do you think it should be legal in the state of Indiana to discriminate against gays or lesbians?
George,
it's a yes or no question.
Come on, Hoosiers don't believe in discrimination.
But that's neither the word yes nor the word no. It's the word Hoosier, which isn't an answer to any question besides what's a good derogatory slang term for an owl with a drinking problem. Look at yourself, you Hoosier. You're gonna go fly into a fucking tree. Get your life together.
No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
Wait, no politician has been treated worse. Abraham Lincoln was shot by an actor. William McKinley was shot by an anarchist. JFK was, of course, murdered by Ted Cruz's father. And James Garfield was shot, then to find the bullet, and this is true, Alexander Graham Bell devised a kind of metal detector which didn't work, so doctors tried to fish around in his guts for the bullet with unwashed fingers, which just made his infection worse, so he died in horrible pain. But yeah, Alec Baldwin sometimes does a mean impression of you on TV. So yeah, it's basically the same, isn't it? Anyway, Tony Mooch wasted no time cracking down on leakers, going on CNN to explain his philosophy with an unexpected reference.
Why don't you honor the job? You remember Joe Paterno? What would he say?
Okay.
Act like you've been there before.
Right.
Act with honor and dignity.
Whoa, 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 whoa. It is a little loaded quoting Joe Paterno, particularly in the context of everyone needs to keep their mouths shut. And the crazy thing is, that whole act like you've been there quote has been attributed to multiple coaches, including Vince Lombardi. And yet, the Mooch still picks the guy with a child sex abuse scandal and dismissal section on his Wikipedia page, which is just weird. If you were pregnant and someone asked you if you knew the sex of the baby, your response would not be, like Casey Anthony once said, it's a girl! And sometimes Trump's 180s seem to happen in real time. For instance, his long-standing belief that North Korea could easily be taken care of by China apparently changed moments after he brought it up to Xi Jinping.
Mr. Xi then explained the history of China and Korea. Mr. Trump said, after listening for 10 minutes, he said, I realize it's not so easy.
Xi Jinping got him to completely change his mind after just 10 minutes. And how did he even explain something that complicated in so short a time? I genuinely want to know that. Because if this show did a segment on grapes, we'd need 20 minutes and an appearance from a marching band. Trump's actual speech patterns sound like when you write a long text by choosing only the predictive text your iPhone suggests for you. Seriously, we wrote a message like that, starting with the words, the nuclear, and here is what we got.
The nuclear test program was not opposed by the other person who knows what they want, and then the delay is not being done by any other country, and that is not the only way to make sure the world can do more things and things like that, and gentlemen, and then the other people who have been told to leave them alone with their children who are also very sad.
That makes exactly as much and potentially more sense than Trump's speech about the Iran nuclear deal, meaning an iPhone would be a more coherent president of the United States. For 30 days does sound like a lot of money because it is a lot of money. And you would hope that at Cliffside they could account for every moment of treatment at that price, but that does not seem to be the case.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. They probably went to whatever they did. There's a therapeutic meaning behind it.
Good save, bro. Because you were in trouble for a minute there, but the therapeutic meaning line was absolutely inspired. Because the truth is, anything can have a therapeutic meaning. His patients are stroking horses, that could be therapeutic. They're biting owls, that could be therapeutic. Even the act of them being lost could be therapeutic. It's called inadvertent wilderness therapy, and it's 140% successful. So far, we've just talked about and while it should be easy to clarify any misconceptions with a simple phone call, that can be difficult. Just listen to what happened when one woman called a CPC for information, and keep in mind when you listen that the centre absolutely, under no circumstances, ever provides abortions.
Good evening, the White Rose. May I help you?
Hi, I was wondering how much you charge for a first trimester abortion?
I really can't. It's not, excuse me, it's the policy that we just like people to come in and we can discuss then and go forward.
So CPCs can lure women to meet with them on false pretenses. Basically, they are catfishing them, a term that was coined because, of course, catfish are constantly trying to trick women who are out of their league into fucking them. That's right. You thought we were out of fish facts. You were wrong. We have millions. I could do this all day. A large European country is teetering on the edge of chaos, and because of that, it is worth looking at the Italian election because everything about it is fascinating. And let's begin with the key figures. First, former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi. He is a centrist, and he had to resign dramatically after making a bold attempt to reform Italy's political system, a referendum that did not go well for him.
E lo dico a voce alta.
I lost, and I say it loud and clear, even if I have a lump in my throat. I wasn't able to win.
Viva l'Italia, in bocca al lupo.
Long live Italy, and good luck to all of us.
Wow, that is ominous. That's like a pilot coming on over the loudspeaker and saying, well, folks, looks like old Captain Doug came up short this time. Anyway, sit back, relax, and good luck to all of us. And look, that's not all. The deal also had strict conditions for monitoring and verification to make sure that they were in compliance. And if they weren't, we could snap those sanctions back. It was a pretty good deal. And yet, many felt it was too generous to Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu called it a bad mistake of historic proportions. And here in the US, there was hard opposition with ads like this.
Hey, bud, how are you? Good. How was your day?
Good.
Hey, sweetie.
Sorry.
Yeah, this smells delicious. Thank you. How was your day?
Wow. That is a hostile way to make your point. So very basically, that is the blockchain, a database that is nearly impossible to hack or tamper with, and which could possibly improve security, efficiency, and trust. That is why big companies like Walmart, IBM, and JP Morgan have all been experimenting with blockchain as a way to potentially share and secure data and transactions in a reliable, easy-to-access way. But it is still very early. No one yet knows what blockchain is really capable of. Honestly, don't worry if you still don't understand it. Most people don't. Dan thinks he does. And sure, he'll throw around terms like supply chain management, and it makes me want to punch him in his fucking face. Stop leaving printouts of Reddit threads on my desk, Dan. You know I'm just throwing them away. I hate you. And speaking of poetic, listen to Roy Moore's feelings on homosexuality, because as bad as you assume they are, they're actually worse. He favours criminalising sodomy, and if you ask him about that, things get weird fast.
Sodomy is against the law of nature. Okay, let's take another one. Is there a right in the Constitution for bestiality?
Yeah, look, you're asking, I don't
Well,
want to
there is no right in the Constitution to commit bestiality. There's nothing that says a man can have sex with a donkey, or a woman can have sex with a donkey, right? It's not in there.
Okay, so say what you will about Roy Moore. He is a man who believes that a woman can fuck a donkey every bit as well as a man, and that is something, hashtag tap that ass, hashtag feminism. And to be clear, those cuts will have massive impacts. Right now, Medicaid covers 20% of all Americans, 49% of births, 60% of children with disabilities, and 64% of all nursing home residents. So, unless you are a professional beach volleyball player with a vasectomy who is estranged from his family and who plans to jump into a volcano at age 35, you or someone you know desperately needs these services. Now, you may have heard some Republicans have come out against this bill in its current form. Some because it's too harsh, others because it is not harsh enough, and of course Ted Cruz is in that group. Of course he is. He's the only man in history whose personality somehow contracted bedbugs. But in any case, Miller spoke to the press this week about the White House's support for a draconian immigration bill which would slash legal immigration levels in half over a decade and make citizenship contingent on factors such as English ability, education levels and job skills, which prompted this incredible exchange with CNN's Jim Acosta.
The Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. Doesn't say anything about speaking English or being able to be a computer programmer.
The poem that you're referring to that was added later is not actually part of the original Statue of Liberty.
Wait, though. Because just because it wasn't part of the original does not mean it is worthless. Some of the best things ever made were changed part-way through. Did you know, for instance, there was a time when Fast and Furious movies didn't have The Rock in them? It's true, and they sucked. That's why they added the fucking Rock. Although, to be fair, not everybody was gloomy about the news this week. Take Nigel Farage, former UKIP leader and current spokesmodel for Smug Dickhead Moisturiser, the moisturiser that gives you that smug dickhead glow. He was absolutely thrilled.
Today's the day for me, after 25 years of campaigning, that the impossible dream came true. I'm delighted.
Well, that is genuinely horrible, because, and you really should know this, every time one of Nigel Farage's dreams come true, somewhere in the world, an angel gets diarrhea. But still, you can't argue that the notion that the CIA can listen to anyone in the world through their Samsung TV is scary. But, again, if you read the documents, you'll find this program applies to Samsung TVs from 2012 and 2013, and the malware was installed via USB. So, presumably, the CIA needed to physically stick that into your TV. And even if that happened, experts advise that there's still actually a potential way to circumvent it. It's a little complicated, so I'll walk you through it. Step one, unplug the TV, and that is it. End of steps. You're off the grid. So, as I was saying, the Iran deal now goes to Congress, but they can't renegotiate it because the deal isn't just between the US and Iran. It's between all of these parties, and they have been pretty clear where they stand.
EU leaders are defending the current agreement, and the UK, Germany and France all say they are committed to the deal as is.
Yeah, of course they don't want to reopen the deal. That's not how deals work. If you buy a lamp on Craigslist for $40, then the deal is one person gets $40, one person gets a lamp. Also, one of you will get murdered, but figuring out who gets murdered and how is really the joie de vivre of Craigslist. Oh, for now, let's move on. Let's move on to Fox News. A series of Cialis and catheter commercials, occasionally interrupted by an episode of The Five. Fox News has been rocked by sexual harassment scandals recently, and this week brought one of the most damaging yet.
This morning, new revelations about sexual harassment claims at Fox News aimed at the network's biggest star. The New York Times finding Fox News and Bill O'Reilly paid 5 women a total of almost $13 million in settlements, going back 15 years.
Yes, Bill O'Reilly, who scientists hypothesise is kind of a dense nebula of boner and racism. And look, that is not to say that no Republicans condemned him by name, because some did.
Let's take a look at just how many Republican lawmakers have called the president out by name over his response to Charlottesville. Now, this is really only a handful of the roughly 300 Republicans in Congress.
Exactly, and that's actually generous, because that graphic includes John Kasich, who isn't even a member of Congress, and Jeb Bush, who holds no government position whatsoever. He's currently, and this is true, running his own frozen yogurt shop in Orlando. Apparently, their tropical mango flavour is fine. It's fine. It's not going to change your life. It's fine. The legitimacy of the results were immediately called into question after reports of voting irregularities, and European observers criticised the referendum, saying it took place on an unlevel playing field, something that Erdogan did not take well.
George nedir? Hans nedir? Helga nedir?
What George, Hans, or Helga say, that's not our problem, Erdogan said, mocking European election monitors questioning the results.
Ouch. That is dismissive, especially since George, Hans and Helga sounds like a former East German folk rock group. We are George, Hans and Helga. Prepare to have the sounds of peace and love administered promptly into your ears and your brains, mein Freunde. The real shock, though, was how quickly all this went down. Changes were still being made to the bill this week, and the CBO, which estimates the cost and impacts of proposed laws, hadn't even had time to score the final version. And multiple members of Congress admitted they hadn't even read the whole thing.
Did you read this entire bill?
Yeah. I wouldn't say every, yes, I turned through every page. As to whether or not I got through some of the details in some of the pages, no. But yes, I attempted to read the entire bill.
Wait, you turned through every page? That's not how you read a bill, that's how you check a bill for spiders. Oh, I can't say whether this bill will cause millions to lose insurance, but it does have the Mark Sanford no spiders guarantee. In the real world, bite mark analysis is highly subjective and unreliable. The President's Council found the entire discipline does not meet the scientific standards for foundational validity, which I believe is science speak for bullshit. But that lawyer actually did a series of videos with kids, and they are all great, but my favourite is this one.
If you were removed, would you like to designate a country of removal?
Yeah.
Okay, what country would that be?
Pizza.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You laugh now, but it won't be so cute when that girl is deported back to Papa John's, because it's technically pizza, and that is exactly why these children need lawyers. But then, of course, 9/11 happened, and all was forgotten, because as America's mayor, his reputation was suddenly solid gold. And upon leaving office, he immediately cashed in. He wrote a book, he gave speeches making as much as $200,000 a pop, and he launched a consulting firm called Giuliani Partners, a name that sounds a lot like a euphemism for cousins who fuck. Oh, them? They're Giuliani Partners. It was love at first sight at their great-grandmother's funeral. Nana always was a matchmaker. The answer to the question, what the fuck is NRA TV, is it's just a vessel to sell America guns. That's pretty much it. Does it work? It's honestly hard to say. They won't reveal their ratings, so it's plausible that no one is watching this and that ad agency, Ackerman McQueen, are making out like bandits. But look, having watched a shitload of NRA TV's programming, here is what I'll say about it. There is a lot to be concerned about regarding the NRA's activities, but NRA TV might actually be the dumbest, most transparent thing that it does. Think about it this way. If the NRA is a ferocious bear charging at you, NRA TV is that bear's ridiculous hat. Is it eye-catching? Sure it is. Is it perversely entertaining? Absolutely. Is it the main thing you should be worried about?